Tear out your goddamn eyes and piss in the sockets!
Good sweet Lord. I have never heard such a thing.
Hey, what is going on, everyone? Dorrani here from VG247, and I am joined by Alex. Alex, say hello.
It's been a while since you've been on the channel.
We have been playing Nier Replicant version 1.22474487139, and we are not going to refer to it as its complete name because it will take up half the video.
Well, actually, the complete name, the ellipses is part of the name. The ... at the end for the record. So,
is it actually
1.22474487139 ... actually.
Okay. So we've been hands-on with Nier, and I've been enjoying my time with it so far. I really have. You've played a lot of it, but before we get into it deeply, what is Nier Replicant? Tell us what that is.
Right, it's a bit complicated. So there was a game in 2010 for the PS3 and the 360 that came out in the West as just Nier, but in Japan it came out as two different games. So there was Nier Gestalt and Nier Replicant, and basically they were the same game but with two different protagonists. So they told the same story, they had the same plot, but Gestalt had you as an older character. He was a father trying to protect his daughter in this post-apocalyptic world, and Replicant is the same setup, but you're playing as the teenaged older brother of the girl that you're trying to protect in the game. And basically the Gestalt version only really existed because the North American branch of Square Enix saw this game and was like, game's cool, but we want a gruff adult protagonist for the West. We don't want a pretty boy who's 16 years old. So this version has never come to the West, but Square Enix is calling this like a game that was previously exclusive to Japan, and that's kind of true, but also, to be honest, a bit cheeky, because like Replicant is an identical story and an identical game to Gestalt, the version that came out in the West. It's just got a different protagonist. So you go to the same places and do the same things, and you're on the same mission. So I think that's the first thing to understand. The second thing is, obviously, this is a remaster. What's obviously happened with Nier is this game was like okay, but it really wasn't a success. Yoko Taro, who's the creative director, creator of Nier, has said that they didn't lose money on the original Nier, but they basically didn't really make money either. But then obviously they, like, what was it, 7 years later, they did Nier Automata, which I think you've played, right? You've played Automata.
Yes, I've played Automata. I didn't complete it, but I did enjoy my time when I did.
Yeah, and Automata went on to be a massive success. It's done like more than 5 million copies, if not more than that. And it went on to be a huge success. So I guess a natural thing is to come back and show people the game that sort of was a springboard for Automata that basically nobody played. Or I would say a fifth of the people who played Automata played the original version of this. So
from what I've seen, the people that did play it, though, just a side note, the people that did play it, they seem like they really enjoyed the
so yeah, I mean, I'm old, right? So I actually reviewed, the original Nier in 2010, I gave it a 6 out of 10. If you go to rpgsite.net and look up their review of Nier, that was written by me, and so I remember it, and it was a really interesting game because it was really flawed and quite cheap in a lot of places. But at the same time, it had so many sick ideas. It was so badass in so many ways. And that was what really allowed Automata to exist, because Automata took those really good ideas and ran with them in what is, frankly, a better game.
Is that a difference? So, Automata is by...
So,
Platinum,
this wasn't Platinum.
Games.
This was another developer called Carvia, I think, who now no longer exist. And obviously Square Enix published it, but they were the developers. This time around on Nier Replicant, the remake version, or the remaster version, some Platinum people have come in. Torasan, who was the sort of general like combat director of Automata, is on board and has sort of helped them to tighten up the combat and things like that. Akihiko Yoshida was the artist on Automata. He's come in and redesigned the characters and sort of helped to redefine this world to bring it more in line with Automata. And so that's what's interesting about this. Like when we talk about what is it, as a remaster, it's more than just... So it's like we got Mass Effect this month, next month rather.
Yeah.
And that is, they've replaced the textures, right? They've done high-res textures. This is more like a artistic step back at a remaster where they've looked at the game and gone, right, we're going to change as much as we need to. We're not necessarily just increasing the resolution. We're going to change how it looks to make it look better if we can. So it's sort of like the original Nier came out at that point in video game history when everything was brown and sludgy. You know, it's that fucking Gears of War era, right? Like, everything is brown and muddy. And Nier was like that a lot. And this game, the colours pop a lot more. The lighting's way better. It's way improved. Because Yoshida came in and redid the character design, they haven't just applied new textures for more detail to the character models. The major character models, these are new models that have been built for this remaster. So,
which I didn't know, actually. Sorry to cut you off. So I played... So as I was playing Nier Replicant, I thought to myself, like a lot of people would... Where did this game come from? So you sort of look back, or you might go on YouTube and search Nier and see what comes up. Oh my god! When I watched the original version of this game, I was so shocked. Like, and you're totally right. All of the colors are horrible, and I was like, "Who is this character that they have on screen?" And
well, to that degree, obviously,
it was just
there. If you were looking at footage of the English version, though, you were looking at, as fans call him, Papa Nier, the older dad character. And in this, you play as the brother, so he's younger anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because that's why they gave it this weird title. Like Yoko Taro said, they sent us out like a review document which sort of had some quotes and stuff from Yoko Taro, and in that he basically says the name is because he looked at Final Fantasy VII Remake and he didn't want to call this a remake because look at that. But then also, he didn't want to call it a remaster because they did a lot more work than your standard remaster. So they called it version 1.22474487139 instead.
dot. Which apparently it means something though. That does mean something.
No,
right?
He has said he sort of chose that at random, but that is the thing about the Nier series. Like, if you haven't played Automata or the original Nier, even the smallest detail can often mean something, and the storytelling is mega in terms of it's so interesting and so unique. And there's something here for everyone in the sense that if you've never experienced a Nier story before, you're in for a treat. You know, Taro has this knack for sort of a madness and a meta that really the only thing I can compare it to is sort of like all the crazy meta stuff in Metal Gear Solid 2. And then also, you know, if you played the original, there's some new content. If you played Automata, you're going to see a lot in this story that explains things that you saw in Automata that weren't explained in that game. So it's really cool.
So would you say this is a good starting point for people? Like, say if you've never played Automata, would you say like people should play Automata first?
I will make no bones, right? Automata is a better game. Automata is a 10 out of 10 game. It's a 5-star game. But this is way improved. On the review, the written review by me on VG247.com, you'll be able to read it's a 4-star game. I stand by that. So it's 1 star less than Automata, but that's still 4 out of 5. So you could start here. It depends on what sort of game you want, because I think this and Automata are quite different. I mean, you've only experienced sort of the opening part of the game, but you've probably already seen it's sort of got this Nier Replicant is sort of the structure's almost a bit like Zelda.
Do you know what? I'm so happy you said that. Because I thought I was going mad when I was playing the game. I said to myself, why am I getting, like, when you're in like the main village where your house is, I was like, why am I getting like little Zelda vibes here? And I actually said to myself, when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, I would like it if it sort of looked this way in sort of like graphical fidelity and the way how some of the textures are. I'm actually very glad you said that. So what made you say that?
So, you know, structurally, it's more like an adventure game. So there's like an overworld, there's towns, there's dungeons. the dungeons are interesting because it doesn't do the Zelda thing where you have an item, but dungeons have gimmicks.
Yeah.
So very minor non-story spoilers here, but for instance, there's a dungeon that's the junk heap that's an ancient robot factory. That is literally like, it has doors that automatically lock behind you, and you have to defeat the enemies within to unlock the doors. But then sometimes it switches perspectives, so sometimes the camera just pulls out and it's a top-down game, like a 2D Zelda, like Link to the Past or something.
Yeah.
And then there's a dungeon that sort of tests your abilities by putting you into rooms where you've got to traverse or do battle, but then it locks away certain abilities. So it says you can't dodge in this room, you can't use magic in this room, or whatever. My favourite dungeon pulls the camera back to sort of an isometric review, like isometric perspective, almost like a classic CRPG, like a Baldur's Gate or something.
So I haven't got to that part, but let me just add to the whole perspective swapping. It's sick. That is one of the best things. I think when you talk about creativity in games, I feel like that's one of the better things I've seen in a long time. And to think that they done that all those years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the stuff that made Automata so loved, right? It's Automata's like beloved, and people are like, I can't believe it did this, it did that, and a lot of the things it did are in this game, which is cool. But it's a different structure, right? So the way I refer to it in the review is I call it Diet Zelda, in that it's lighter on the puzzles, it's lighter on the puzzles and heavier on the combat, right? Like, or maybe that's not Diet Zelda, maybe that's like extra sugar Zelda, like protein shake Zelda. But it's definitely Zelda-esque in terms of the structure, and that makes it quite different to Automata, which is a more traditional platinum action game with some RPG elements on top.
Do you know what? So I thought Platinum made Replicant. So Astral Chain, another one of Platinum games. I played that and it didn't get any love from what I saw, but I love that game. So I went back to Nier Replicant and I was like, I'm expecting it to be like a Platinum game. And it just, do you know what? I like it. I like Nier Replicant, but it doesn't, at the moment, for my first few hours, it doesn't feel like it's clicking with me as fast as Automata.
So let me tell you something about this game, and I think this is a really important thing for anyone to understand. This is a game that gets better as you play it. So if you're super, super spoiler sensitive, you might want to skip forward 30 seconds or whatever. But I just want to talk about the context of this game, the way it plays out. So the game is split into two halves. There's a time skip in the middle. So the way the structure of the game works is you play the first half once, then you save, then there's the time skip, and some time passes, and the protagonist grows up a little bit from like 16 to mid-20s, or early 20s. And basically, the bit after the time skip, you play it, you complete it, and you get what the game calls ending A. And this is similar to Nier Automata in the sense that it had ending A to Z. This doesn't have that many, but you know, it's got multiple endings. So you complete the second half of the game, get ending A, then you save your game for like your completed save game. Then you load up that completed game save, and it puts you back at the start of the second half of the game. Now you replay. Bear with me. Now you you're
losing me, man.
You complete the game once, right? And the game's split in two halves. After the first half, you then play the second half, and then once you've completed the game, you load up New Game Plus, and you get to play the second half of the game, but only the second half again. Except this time, there's a bunch of added cutscenes, a bunch of added information. You are able to understand some stuff that wasn't in English, that you couldn't understand in the first playthrough. And you complete this, and you complete the second half of the game again. Then you go back, and you can do it 2 more times to see 2 further endings with more context, and even change the outcome of the story a little bit towards the end. And then actually, new for this version, there's 1 more new bit that you can find if you know how to find it.
This all sounds incredibly complex. And the question that this brings to me, if I know nothing about Nier that as a franchise, and I play Replicant, will I like know that there's multiple endings
so,
if I just play it through?
So when you complete it the first time, it will say you've got ending A. Load up this save file and play again to get ending B.
Okay.
And then it will give you little hints, which it didn't do before, but that's one of the things they've added to make it a bit clearer. And they've done a lot in this remaster to make the whole game clearer. Like the original version, infamously, there's a bit where you've got to catch a fish, and it wasn't clear where you had to catch the fish, and loads of people got stuck there and just stopped playing. And so they've improved all that sort of stuff. But the idea is the story sort of unfolds gradually, piece by piece, and there'll be things in the first playthrough where you're like, what is going on there? Or you might go, who is that character talking to? And then in a subsequent playthrough, you learn that that character can hear things that the other characters cannot. And then you're able to hear what that character's actually hearing, and so on and so forth. So so the story sort of unravels in a really interesting way. And what I was going to say, the reason I brought this up when you said it wasn't grabbing you as much as Automata, is that I think this is definitely a game that gets better the deeper you get. And that's why it became a cult classic, because even though it wasn't perfect, the people who gave their time to it discovered that it was just wonderful and really clever. And
will that sort of stuff be appreciated by players though in big 2021?
I think they will, because Automata plays a lot of the same tricks. And I actually think this story, it's more straightforward, but I actually think it's almost a little bit more interesting than Automata's in some way, which I know will piss some people off, but I've said it now. So yeah, I totally think it's an acquired taste, and I definitely think there will be people who played Automata who try this and go, what the fuck is this? I ain't interested. But if you're willing to give it the time, I think there's so much depth and so much to enjoy here.
So that's the pro tip for the story, is to continue, just keep going. But
it's definitely, like I said, it's not as good a game as Automata in the sense that no matter how much tweaking they do, and they've done a lot, and it's so much better than it was, the combat in this game ain't Automata's combat. It is not.
It's not. So let's actually speak about the combat now a little bit more. I don't know how I feel about the combat. I've heard that. So, as you said, this isn't a remake or a remaster, but they have made tweaks to the combat, right? So it's not just they've changed the particle effects of when you're shooting stuff out of the Grimoire Vice. They've actually balanced things out and tightened up the animations, and the frames and all the sort of things as well. Saying that though, it just feels old. When something feels old, and I can't shake this feeling of, man, and this is just as a whole as well, not just the combat. It just feels a bit bland. I feel like years ago it would have been, when this game first came out, and I saw these and if I played it at the time when I saw these sort of things, I would have been like, yo, this is crazy. But
well, again, this is a Zelda-style game, right? And a pre-Breath of the Wild Zelda-style game, really. And so when you think about what the combat's like in Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, this is not a million miles away from that. It's hack and slashy as well, so there's elements of Musou, of Warriors in there. There's elements of Devil May Cry perhaps in there, but it's nowhere near as accomplished as those sorts of things. What I will say is the point that you're at, because you're sort of in the first half of the game, like I said, pre-time skip. After that, in the second half of the game, the older version of the protagonist actually can equip 3 different types of weapons. So then you're sort of able to... So you get one-handed swords, two-handed swords, and spears. So then you're able to switch between these in the fly, mid-combo, and stuff like that. And you've got more powers for Vice. So that stuff definitely does get better. But like you said, it does still feel a bit old. But it is old. The game's 11 years old. So, and also it wasn't, in terms of the way it played, it wasn't the hottest game when it came out. Something I do want to say is, if you play on easy mode, one thing Automata had, the key thing for Automata that is clear is they wanted people to experience that story, and they wanted people to feel confident and able to play through the game multiple times. As a result, they put in a mode which is like an auto battle mode where the game sort of plays itself and you just move around in combat.
I did see that in the settings,
and that is in this too. So if you're a Nier fan but you're really struggling because of the the older edge of the combat, then you could obviously switch that on and just sort of enjoy the story.
I might have to see what that's like just to see what happens if you just let it all.
Have to be honest, I completed the game a couple of times, and then when I was wanting to see the rest of the content, I started a new file and on easy mode and used the auto battle the whole time in order to see all the endings and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, is there anything else you want to add to the combat aspect of it? I think the whole bullet hell sort of
it's cool.
vibe is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. It's not just, remember your combos, and you have to be agile, and I love that sort of stuff. But there's nothing as it stands. There's nothing for me in my 6 hours that I'm currently at in Nier Replicant. There's nothing that is saying this combat is outstanding.
After 60 hours or something, I'm not going to dispute that. I'm not going to call the combat out. I'm not going to call the combat outstanding, but it's much improved, and it's definitely more than good enough that you'll stick with it if you want to experience this story.
Definitely. So we covered visuals. Do we need to speak about is there anything else visually you want to speak about?
I think it's good looking. I'm not a massive fan of Kaine's design still. There is a sort of story justification for the way that she dresses. And I will say, there's some great banter and advice about the fact that she's dressed in lingerie, basically.
What is that? I don't get it.
There are story reasons, but for me, it's a bit like how, Kojima saying you'll be ashamed of your words and deeds when you find out why Quiet is in a bikini in MGS5, and then the reason just sort of sucked. Kaine would be a great character however she was dressed. I do sort of wish she wasn't dressed like that, because it's sort of that thing of, I don't know, my partner comes in the room and she watches and she looks at me playing it and she's like, "What is that woman dressed in?" And I'm just like, "Look,
what are you playing? What are you playing?"
Really. So I'm not a massive fan of that still, but I think the game looks great. I think they did a really good job of sort of bringing it a bit closer to Automata. But the thing I love, and this isn't just an art thing.
2B's the same, by the way.
Not quite as bad as Kaine though. They've sort of got that leather, BDSM thing going on, but they're at least covered. But yeah, I mean, I think they've done a great job of bringing it closer. But the thing I love about this game, not just artistically, but across the board, is revisiting a game like this after having such huge success with Automata. It would have been really easy to just try to turn this game into Automata and add in loads of references to Automata and stuff like that to make the fans of that game happy. They haven't. They've done a bit of that, but they've really. It is still its own game, its own story, and I really love that. It's got its own identity, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah. Agreed. So far, as it stands, it feels like Automata, but it's definitely something else. Okay, so let's actually wrap it up here. To be honest, is there anything you want to say that we didn't cover?
Just briefly, just to touch on. Obviously, you can read the full review on VG247.com, but just some quick bullet points. So there's two main new pieces of content. The first one is sort of a new storyline that's integrated naturally into the main story. It's integrated really well, really perfectly, really works. It's a big boss battle at the end. It's dramatic. And actually, that's one of the most interesting stories that changes when you play it again on subsequent playthroughs. Okay. So that's cool. There is, like I said, some new end sort of stuff if you know how to find it, but you will have to play many hours to reach that. But that's got some cool stuff in it, just in general. I can't say anymore. I'm not allowed, and I wouldn't want to spoil it. The music is fucking incredible. Award-winning. Just Okabe-san, the composer, is just a legend, and he's done a really good job sort of redoing this soundtrack. There's also the option, after you complete the game for the first time, to play with music from Automata instead as well, which is cool.
Okay. I just want to say also, just to reinforce that's one thing, and I should have had it in my notes too, the music is
it's
10,
bonkers.
10.
The
I'm not
only
gonna
small
lie.
thing is it's sort of like you can that's where you see the age of the game, in that the music is beautiful, the compositions are beautiful, but sometimes the way it's used, where they don't have specific versions of music for cutscenes, they just play a song. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
It's not very dynamic in the way that music was in Automata, and that's because of the age of the game. But the soundtrack has been redone, and it's beautiful. I'm trying to think what else. The DLC that's been integrated, Square's talked a lot about, it includes the DLC. The DLC sucked, so it doesn't really matter. But there is one Easter egg in there for fans of the original that is cool. I mean, it's there's a lot of the one other thing I'd say is there is a fair amount of backtracking. The structure of the game, where there's two halves of the game, is almost used as an excuse. So you almost you go to these 5 dungeon locations and these 3 major towns in the first half, and then there's a time skip, and then you go to those same places in the second half to revisit them for different reasons. And although they open new areas up within those, so it's like, oh, here's a new floor of this dungeon that you didn't access in the first half of the game. It does feel a bit backtracky. I feel like that stuff we let go more in 2010. Now you look at it and you go, ugh. Yeah. But I think it's a testament to the game that the game is so good that really you don't mind it so much. And I do, like I say, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think it's ambitious and clever. I think the story's brilliant. I think the original game had 3 issues. It had muddy visuals, it performed poorly, and it had too much backtracking. 2 out of 3 of those are addressed in this, so 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that wraps up our hands-on first impressions with Nier Replicant version 1.224487139. Oh man, definitely go and check it out. I'm Dorrani, and this
Alex,
is
thank you for
from VG 24/7, and take care, everyone. Peace.